Matt,
What up, bro?
how's it going, sir?
Going well. How about you?
Oh, it's going great. Are you in Nashville?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville.
How's it going up there?
It's good. Weather's been good the last few days, so it's nice.
Yeah, you've been hitting the links?
Oh yeah, yeah. I played yesterday and the day before. So,
Nice.
hmm Yeah, it
That's
was.
cool. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, dude. So it was interesting. I was thinking about our conversation that we had when we played golf. And like we were all over the place. Like we talked about a whole bunch of different things, but yeah, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about your story and where you started, and then that whole journey, and like how you found yourself, being a professional, trainer of dogs. And like I just thought it was a really interesting path.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that you were open to coming on, because I wanted to share some of that with people, because I think there's a lot of value. Couple things that we can kind of chop up and talk about. But just to start, like maybe give a little like story of where you started and some of the stuff you shared with me.
Yeah. So as far as like dog training goes,
No, like just like from the beginning, like
okay.
your background, and then how you found your way, and like the just that general timeline.
Okay. Yeah, you just like in life in general.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what we talked about that day, but it seems like being born and raised here in a small town like in Lawrenceburg, um, and then I've moved around quite a bit. Um, I lived in Florida for a couple of years, and uh, primarily grew up in Jackson, Tennessee when I was young. I lived there until I was like I don't know, about 22. Yeah, 22. And then I moved to Florida for a couple of years. I actually served a Mormon mission there. That's what took me there for a couple of years. And then I moved out to Utah. I was seeing a girl at the time, and we ended up getting married. And I was in Utah for almost 9 years. And things didn't work out there. And, came back home. And somewhere in between all of that, I got into, well, I bought me a dog. I bought a working line German Shepherd, and that is what started my dog training journey. Everybody's always like, "Oh, Matt, what got you into dog training?" I'm like, "I bought one." Like, I bought a dog, and he was a lot of dog, and I probably shouldn't have owned him. I had no idea what I was doing, and so I had to learn very, very quick. Um, and it just started a journey, man. I was on a search and learned a lot of information, learned a lot about myself, and just kept going with it.
Yeah, so the thing that I was thinking that was interesting to me was that finding your calling after, not like being out in the wilderness for a while, but like the 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 things that you'd been doing up until the point that you actually, got a dog that needed actually, like, needs training. And then I'm curious about like what that triggered inside of you, like from a passion perspective. Like it seems like it awakened
Oh,
something inside of you that was like, I've kind of arrived. Like this is what I like to do.
oh yeah, that's it. I was just bought the dog and realized how much work it was. And a lot of people, I feel like most dog owners have no idea how much work it truly is, um, which is why you should see a professional. But um, it's a lot of work. And I'm the kind of guy that, like, when I do something, when I commit to something, I'm all in. I've always been that way. I don't know just how I'm hardwired, but so I bought this dog and I'm like, I'm all in. And I had no clue what I was doing. So I started searching out, trainers, and I found out that there's a lot of bullshit in the dog training world. There's a reason why it's called a dog and pony show. You probably experienced some similar stuff with golf. So there's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. And, I weeded through some trainers, and as I was on my journey to learn more, and end up finding one of my mentors, and just dove in like hook, line, and sinker into training. I was there 3 or 4 times a week for like 3 to 4 hours a day, just like training. I would go to work. All I could think about was training. Like, I'm gonna get my dog trained. I'm gonna do this. I'm learning. So I was learning like obedience work. He had like he's an old Marine, so he has a military background, and so he was into bite dogs. I got into like bite sports. Um, so teaching dogs how to bite, um, tracking. It was just really super fascinating, and I just was all in, and took my dog that at that point in time didn't really know shit. And just we were out there, man. We were just doing it, and so I just found a passion for it, and figured I was. Then I started having people asking me dog questions, and like, oh, well, Matt, how do I get this? I'll be at work, and everybody's asking, like, you're really good at this. You should probably like look into doing this. And I was like, oh, I've never really thought about that, but I dog trained I didn't really start taking money for dog training until like 4 years ago. So I had been training for a while before I ever decided to take money, where I felt like I could actually help people.
Yeah, so you got the feedback from other people and like realized that there was a value in your mission, essentially. Like, there was not only for yourself, but there was an additional value outside of yourself that people were attracted to.
Exactly. And there was a lot, I think people were having a hard time because I deal a lot with clients I have a lot of referrals, like referral based clients. And I think a lot of it is, a lot of people are out there dealing with, it's like I said, it's the training world is just there's a lot of bullshit. Like, people make claims that they can help these people with dogs. And, it's just not the case. Like, whenever it comes down to it, like, it's just, I mean, it's a non-regulated industry. Like, we could get on the computer, you and I right now, and or anybody, right? I mean, we could get on the computer and say, hey, I want to be a dog trainer, pay a little bit of money, and they'll print you off a certificate that says you're a certified dog trainer. Well, what does that mean? Because you've never finished a dog. So it's just one of those industries that's not regulated, and it can be pretty scary. And so there's not a lot of knowledge out there about that, about, actual dog people. We're so busy training dogs that a lot of time we don't get the information out there the way that it should be. We need to be better about that. But yeah, it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. And so most of my clients are people that have already been to 2 or 3 trainers before, and they just couldn't get any help. And
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, my background's in golf, and I see the same thing with I see a lot of parallels with instruction,
exactly.
and I see a lot of bullshit out there too about what people should be working on, and it's almost like there's this dopamine chaser where it's like, if I put up a tip or I share something that might seem spectacular, then it's going to get people hooked on what it is that I'm trying to do, but it's not really providing the foundation or the ability for the person to implement any of the information. So I was just curious about, like, from your perspective, what do you see as like the bullshit? Like, what are some things that are super common for people when they're working with I'm a novice, so I've researched some of it, but just curious what your thoughts are on.
Yeah.
On the BS.
Yeah. I think, well, it's in my opinion, the biggest one that I see is, for one, people call this positive only training, um, to where you never tell your dog no, you never correct a dog for unwanted behavior. Uh, but it goes even further than that. I feel like they just don't, in general, like they'll say like it's positive only, but then a lot of times they're not even using positive reinforcement the correct way. So positive only training is a huge myth. Um, you'll never train a dog that way, in my opinion. Um, not to the level that I think a dog, what I consider a trained dog. So, but then you also have the opposite end of the spectrum, to where a lot of these other people that are called balance trainers, they will, con people, where they just, like, somebody a call and they'll have a dog like, Elizabeth's dog, and if the dog's reacting or something, the answer to them is just to put a e-collar on the dog and just light it up, right? Without ever really teaching the dog what it should be doing. Because if the dog knows what it's supposed to be doing, 99% of the time, the dog is going to make the right choice if the relationship is right with you. And so that's what I'm a big proponent of. What I feel like dog training is having a relationship with your dog, to where the dog wants to work with you, wants to be with you, wants to do these things, right? Um, Similar to like if a child had a good relationship with his parent, where the parent could, the child could come to the parent when things are right? This is all just psychology. So we want our relationship to be good with the dog, so that we can work with the dog in tandem. And there's a reason why they're called man's best friend. Like, we've used dogs for thousands and thousands of years. If it weren't for dogs, we wouldn't be where we are right now. They've helped us progress. I'm talking about like way back. They've kept us safe. They've helped us hunt. That's why we have all these different breeds, is because they're bred for a specific purpose, right? So it's selective breeding. And so, yeah, I think the relationship is what it all comes down to. You need to have clear communication. Uh, I'm what's called a balanced trainer. I believe that you have to have good and bad. Like, a dog can't make the right decision if it doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. The same way that you and I can't make the right decision if we don't know the difference between right or wrong. So we just need to teach them, and we need to keep the communication very simple and very clear. Um, but yeah, I think there's just a lot of bullshit on both sides. You got the positive only people saying, never tell your dog no, and don't use these collars, and don't pop your dog, and all that. And they're putting too many human emotions on the animal, and that ends up just being a nightmare. And then you have the opposite end of where people just want to, like, submit the dog, right? Like, hey, this dog has to do what I'm saying. It's like, no, 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 no. It's a balance of the two. So,
Right. So it's finding that middle ground.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah. So
Lot.
I'm curious, like, I know you have a lot of clients, and you see a lot of personalities, and there's got to be some sort of like intuitive sense of like when a person brings their dog to you, you kind of get a read on the dog and the person, and the person who owns the dog, in a way that the dog is almost a reflection of that person. So it's like, if a person isn't willing to provide balance, or doesn't have the capability of providing that middle way, because they themselves aren't in the middle way, how do you help people? Like, how does that relationship work? Like, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, it's just because, like I said, it's all psychology. So usually people, this gets pretty deep, but usually people gravitate toward dogs and putting emotions on these dogs because they're lacking other things in their life. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see that a ton. And then the animal suffers because of it. And people are like, oh, it's just my little baby. And I was like, no, you're creating that. This is a living, breathing thing that's alive, right? This is an animal. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a person. It's never going to be a person, not a human, not a Homo sapien, right? This is a canine. And so the quicker we can treat the dog like what it is, the same way we treat humans like what we are, which is a whole nother discussion because we've gotten away from that. But um, the sooner we can treat the animal like what it is, the quicker it responds to us, the more it respects us. Um, I just had a dog, Giyu. I don't know if you ever met him, but he cool little German Shepherd. I got him for sport. He just wasn't the right fit for sport, but I rehomed him to this gal, and I've been helping her. And she's like, Matt, he just acts completely different, like when I first saw him with you than when I have him. And I was like, okay, let's talk about that. Why is that? And she'll stop. I'm like, take me through your daily routine. Okay, well, my daily routine is this, 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 and this. Okay, well, you're giving the dog way too much freedom and you're putting too much human emotion on the dog. And so, hell yeah, he's acting way different because he feels like he needs to be some type of way with you that he didn't have to be with me. He felt more safe and secure and like his needs were being met, right? And so that's really what it is. And when people come in, you have to be humble and you have to be teachable. We'll get some people that walk in the door. I mean, I've turned people away, dude, and I'll turn people away. So if I feel like you're Mr. Know It All, I'm like, why the hell are you even here?
Right.
Call me. If you know so much about dog training, then go train a dog. Let's see what you got. But if you're here because you need help and you truly want help with your dog, I'm here to help you. And I'll help you till I can't help you. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm that way. I'll go out of my way to help somebody with a dog. So shit, I've done it for free before. I've been on the side of the road like a month ago. This gal had a dog and it was just dragging her. I just pulled over the car. I was like, hey, not for nothing, but like real quick, can I just show you something? And, she was working with a trainer. I'm like, how's your trainer not helped you with that? But that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. So,
Right. Right. And then, when the dog when the dog receives that balance, I'm assuming that it's better for the dog's happier. So the dog's able to act in its normal, it's able to be what it is.
yeah, exactly. It gets to act like a canine because you're treating it like a canine. People are like, oh, not the crate. Okay, well, it's a den animal. So if you use the crate, we're den animals. We live in houses. So, it's a safe space for it. Having the dog, giving all the dog this freedom, just free roam of everything. The dog doesn't want that. The dog wants somebody that can provide for it. These wolf packs are family units, like they're in it together, right? And that's the way it should be with us.
Right. And that's built into every breed of dog.
That's what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take the smallest dog, the freaking Chihuahua, when you get down to it, is a canine. So it might not look like it came from that, but that's years of selective breeding to get that look, right? The same way, like, I find genetics, like the breeding is unreal. Like, it's so fascinating because we got a Chihuahua, and then on the whole other end of the spectrum, we can have something like like a coonhound with like totally different looks and like ears and just completely different looking dogs because they were purposefully bred over years and years and years to perform a job.
What do you think of that? I mean, do you think that some of the breeding's gone too far?
Oh, I think if we want to get started on I think, well, first of all, 98% of breeding is bullshit. It's all for money or backyard bred. There's no thought put into actual genetics anymore. For instance, the doodle thing, right? We got all these doodles. Well, what's the point of a doodle? There is no point because a doodle has no purpose other than when people are breeding them, they're breeding them for money. And they do the same thing with purebred dogs. Don't get me wrong, because I look like my favorite breed is German Shepherd. Well, we can get on here right now and Google German Shepherd breeders near us, and it's going to be a whole bunch of bullshit. And if I was with you, we could weed through them. I call them, and I can get through them real quick and tell that they're puppy mills or they're backyard breeders. There's no health testing. They don't know about the great grandfather. They don't know. When you're dealing with genetics, man, you got to look at a pedigree. There's a reason why there's a pedigree, because you're looking at these things that these dogs brought to the table and you're pairing them up and you're hoping a breeder should have a goal in mind. Like, hey, this is what I'm hoping to achieve with this breeding. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, they should be going to homes like people getting German Shepherds that have no idea how much drive they have. Like, as a breeder, if I was breeding these dogs, I wouldn't even sell a dog to somebody like that, to the general public. You can't have one of my puppies because you don't know shit about it. You haven't put in the work. Like, what are you going to do? Rehome it or take it to the pound? That's why we have pounds, because the breeding sucks. Like, there's no regulation about it. It's not like Europe. They have breed wardens. You can't breed dogs unless they're titled. It's just very, very, very different here in the U.S.
So the United States is quite a bit more lax. There, it's just, would you say it's just a completely unregulated industry?
Yep.
So if I wanted to, with no knowledge of breeding,
You can do it right now.
I could come up with a crazy idea of breeding a couple of dogs, like a Basset Hound with a Great Dane.
And call it what you want to. You could come up with your own breed. And look, I got no problem with that, because that's how some of these breeds started. As long as you had an idea of what you wanted to create. So I would ask you, I would be like, okay, Pete, what's the purpose in breeding these dogs? What do you achieve with this?
And it can't be, I just want to get paid.
They just want to get paid.
Yeah.
They think they want to get paid, but the truth is they don't really have a market for it. And then that's why everybody jumps on these doodles right now, because they're the hot item. It'll go away. Every breed's had that, and they've all went to shit. So
do you think that the breed that doesn't necessarily have a purpose, I mean, let's just say, for lack of example, the poodle, right? That, or the doodle. If that dog doesn't necessarily have it, does the lack of purpose affect the dog too? Like, does that
that's why doodles are crazy, bro. It's because people aren't shit with them. They're like, oh, my doodle's so hyper. Yeah, it's hyper because it's bred with a poodle, which is one of the first ever retrievers. German poodles are gnarly dogs. I love them. Super underrated, like highly underrated water dogs. That's why their coat is curly. They're made for swimming and protection, right? From stuff that they're hunting.
Right.
That's why they still do the show cut. So it protects the vitals, right? A lot of people don't know that. But so you breed a poodle. So the guy that created the Labradoodle, that was the first doodle. He said that was his worst thing he's ever done. He wished he would have never done it. He bred them for like working. He's a dude in Australia, you know. But yeah, he's breeding breeding a Labrador Retriever with a poodle. Well, you got two high drive dogs. What kind of puppies are you going to get? High drive puppies, right? And same thing with golden retrievers. And then all of a sudden, people are like, "Well, I think this would make a great family dog." Yeah, sounds good, you know. And they do make. Don't get me wrong, they can make great pets, but they're My thing is, why would you spend that kind of money on a dog that has no health testing when, for one, no good breeder is selling somebody a poodle to a doodle breeder? They're not going to breed this nice poodle to make a mutt. Like, that's not going to happen. So they get the shittiest poodle already and they breed it with the shittiest golden retriever or labradoodle or cat. There's so many damn doodles. So you're already starting with shit genetics and then you combine shit genetics. So what are you going to get? Shit.
Right. And then those are the dogs that are being put out into the market, and then
For thousands of dollars, bro.
right, and then people purchase them.
Yep.
Yeah. And then
with
it
no
just
with no health testing, no nothing. Like these dogs just randomly die sometimes. They get cancer. They have all kind of problems. I mean, I've heard horror stories. Same thing with purebred dogs. That's why a lot of people don't realize. They're like, oh, I've always heard that mutts are healthier than purebred dogs. It should be the opposite. Well-bred purebred dogs. I mean, I got Rowan here. He's German Shepherd, 98 pounds. His dad was 120-pound legit working weight, lived to be 15 years old. Rowan looks like he's probably on par to do about the same. So when the average lifespan is like 10. So it's
wow.
down to, genetics plays a big role in that. So people, they're like, oh, they have hip issues and they have, yeah, that's what happened when all these puppy mills, when they're just breeding shit dogs, right? So nobody's testing hip health, back health, eye health, if cancer runs in there, like they make tests now. We can take tests as humans. Dogs can take the same test. You can see the genetic traits of dogs. And so breeding at this point should be at a super high standard. And instead it's like at an all-time low.
That's amazing. I had no idea that that was the the case, to be honest. Like, no, I didn't have any clue.
Most people don't.
Yeah. Do you think that most people who have dogs, what would you say the percentage would be for dog owners and their like training capabilities? Like, are most dogs untrained?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
Like even what I would consider like just pet obedience, like just having the damn dog in the house and like basic just living with the dog. Like 98% of people's dogs aren't trained.
Right.
It's crazy.
So there's this well-intended idea that I can take the dog to a trainer and then who knows, maybe they go on a 2-week, 3-week training course, maybe a month. I grew up with like hunting dogs, and so there was one dog specifically that we sent away to go through so essentially like a bird hunting
For sure. Yep.
training course, right? And then when the dog came back, we had the understanding and the awareness, like the training tools, and would play with the dog, but it was more specific to what the dog had learned at its camp, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you were training. That's what
Yeah, yeah. And we were just kids playing with the dog, but we had been instructed on when to throw it and like the commands, and so it was a pretty consistent environment for the dog. But how often is it that a dog is sent away to a camp like that, and then brought back into the environment, and the training stops because the owner doesn't continue? Like, how, I guess what I'm saying, there's no magic bullet, right? Like, a dog can't be sent to a trainer and then go back to the environment that it came from and it's fixed.
No, the same thing's going to happen, right? Because the owner's going to do the exact same thing. And so that's why it has to be hands on. The knowledge has to be passed. When somebody truly wants to get into dogs and how to have a dog, it becomes a lifestyle change because you have to learn, you become a dog handler. when you become a dog owner, let me say this, when you become a dog owner, you become a dog trainer and a dog handler. And people need to understand that. That is like the biggest thing to understand about when you purchase a dog, is that that is now what has to happen.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're screwed.
right. And that's one of the biggest things that I learned from you, because I'd fallen under that same veil, I guess you could say, of most consumers that are interested in buying a dog, or having a dog for like good reasons, companionship,
Exactly. Yep.
responsibility, right? Like good,
Whatever.
yeah,
Dogs are awesome.
100%. I agree with you. And then thinking that, well, I'm just gonna get a puppy, and because of the early days of the dog, it's just going to naturally assimilate itself into the way that it should be. It, and I'm just, it's interesting because I've had that thought before. And really what you're saying is that as soon as I make that commitment to purchase that dog, I have to be willing to pay the price of becoming an actual handler, meaning I have to do some of my own personal development and growth to be able to help that dog, which is in a way helping me, right?
Exactly.
It's helping me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
always like if you spell dog backwards and see what they are. Like it brings so much out of you. They're so selfless. Like you learn a ton about yourself. Like training with the dog is really, really cool and like having a dog. But it is definitely a responsibility the same way that if somebody was going to choose to have a child, it's just a commitment. It's about the same type of commitment, just on a lesser lifespan, God willing, right? Because dogs just don't live as long as we do. But it's a huge responsibility. And I think a lot of times we just take it for granted.
right. Do you think that over time, because of human nature and societal changes, do you think that, say 60 years, 70-year, like a 70-year window, do you think that it was more common for owners of dogs to handle that responsibility at a much greater depth,
Hell yeah.
say in 1930 or
Oh yeah,
1940?
for sure. They and I mean we're still kind of new to dogs over here because they've been using dogs in Europe for a long time, right? And in Asia. So America is new to dogs, but when we relied on dogs, because humans have gotten away from what we are as hunters and gatherers, right? We talked a little bit about this the one day.
Yeah,
I mean, the fact that we sit on computers all day, every day now, and everything's instant gratification, right? And so we've gotten away from what we are, but dogs haven't. Dogs are the same. They've been the same. They're going to be the same. And so I think that puts the us as humans a little out of touch um, with how to handle them, right? We don't. They become like with most people, they become you buy the White House, the picket fence, you have a kid, you get a dog. That's like the American dream, right? So they become like this show of that you've made it almost, instead of like, hey, we need this dog. We're using this dog. If you want to see well trained dogs, all you have to do is find a homeless person with a dog. And if you ever pay attention to the homeless person with the dog, I just saw one the other day, completely off leash. Now, I don't recommend this because there's leash laws, but the dog is just with him and just going, super happy. And then you'll hear the reason why the dog's that way is because he's spending all this time with the dog. Like they have a relationship, like
right.
relationship, right? The dog trusts this guy. And my dad's told me stories before. He's like, man, I had this one dog. The dog's name was Streak, and he's like, the dog could do whatever I wanted it to. One thing that my dad has forgotten about that, because a lot of people's like, oh, that dog's just smart. Well, dogs are just survivalists. The reason why the dog would do whatever my dad asked is because my dad spent a shit ton of time with the dog. So the dog learned and picked up, right? And we've just gotten away from that as a whole. Like dog owners are way far away from that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I can think of times seeing people on the side of the road or they have a dog, and
Yes, sir.
I can't remember, I don't have vast experience paying attention to it, but from what I can remember, they're all very obedient.
Very obedient.
That's it. That's super interesting.
Like they'll just lay there. When I was in Utah, there was a guy, he was notorious. He'd sit outside the mall there, and the dog would just lay there for hours and hours, like no kind of leash, no kind of collar, just
Totally comfortable.
totally content with the situation.
Right. And in a way, that's what when you're training a dog, you're moving them towards that,
Hmm.
moving them towards that direction of what they would
Yeah, what they
experience.
are, what they want to be, what they want to do, right? And educating the human on how to get that from their dog.
Yeah, I was thinking, those the people that are the train riders, like the vagabonds, that you see them,
Yep,
they got their guitar case and they're sitting outside in some parking lot, and they're on the move and they've got dogs. Same thing.
exactly.
They're
It is
just
time.
comfortable. But every time I've seen that with a dog, they've always been comfortable.
Yeah, they're super comfortable. There's one cool, you should check out in Russia, there's dogs that ride the trains. They figured out how to ride the trains to like their destination or where people feed them and stuff. It's phenomenal.
Oh,
People are like, "Oh, dogs are just smart," and I'm like, "Every dog is smart. There's some that have more intelligence than others, just like humans, but as a whole, they're just surviving. So they're gonna do what it takes to survive the same way that we do. So, you know, they figure out real quick, like, hey, we can use this train. They see people coming in and out of it, and people are feeding them, and these people are actually rewarding the behavior of the dog. They don't even realize they're training the dog to do that, but they are. Yeah,
that's amazing.
that's pretty cool.
So what would you say have been the biggest personal development areas of your life since starting on the journey of training Rowan, and like really, like what were you like when you started training, and then over the course of 4 or 5 years, what are some of the characteristics that have developed in you from the process?
I've changed a lot. I used to be very, I wouldn't say I was closed minded. I've always been an open minded person, but I was a lot more closed minded. And when I started really learning psychology and like how the world works and what makes stuff tick, um, like I just started seeing things differently. Um, and then patience, like dog training is a lot of patience. And it's something that I've always kind of struggled with because like I told you before, like when I want to do something, I'm all in and I want to get really good at stuff fast because I like will devote a lot of time to it. But dog training, sometimes you have to be patient because every dog is different. Now, you can teach the same thing to some dogs and they pick it up, and other dogs are like, oh, I'm not really understanding what you're doing here. Well, you just got to take more time. I had an Airedale that I was training, an Airedale Terrier, and he took like 3 weeks longer to do a couple of things than most dogs did. But as soon as he got it, he was better than those dogs at doing it. So patience is a huge thing when it comes to dog training, and it's something that I've definitely improved on, and I need to keep improving on. Um, yeah, I would say those just like opening my mind about the way that I see the world through learning more about the way things tick and yeah, patience.
Yeah. Do you think that you think you helped the dog more than the dogs helped you?
Nope. Dogs help me more, man. The dog, like I said, spell dog backwards, and you realize what they are. So they teach you so much. They, this is the reason why, like when I see dog stuff, I get so emotional. Like I've cried a many a times, and I'm not really a crier, but when stuff happens to dogs, or I can go to people's funerals sometime and not shed a tear, but when a dog dies, it's just different because it's truly the one animal that will love you unconditionally. There's no conditions. Like we were talking about earlier with the vagabonds and the homeless people, like the dog doesn't give a shit that they're homeless.
Right.
He doesn't care. There's no judgment, right? So the dog meets you where you are, and it adds to your life. It never takes away. And if you think the dog is taken away from your life, then you're not doing something correctly.
Right. And that's more of a reflection on the person then.
That's on you, 200%.
Wow. Do you think that most people should own dogs?
Nope.
So
Nope.
you would say that too many people own dogs?
Way too many. I think we like people think the dogs are like the American dream, show that you like made it. I think like 98% of people that own dogs shouldn't own them. They require a lot of work and a lot of commitment. There's other animals and things that people could have if they just truly want that and they want to put those emotions on animals as opposed to owning a dog. So
Right. And I think it probably goes back to not really understanding what I'm signing up for.
at all.
Like I don't really understand the contract that I'm signing and what my responsibility is for that dog.
Which should come back to good breeding. So if I'm a breeder, you call me, you're looking for a German Shepherd, I'm interviewing you. I'm letting you know, like, hey, these are the tendencies of this dog. What is your lifestyle?
Right.
If your lifestyle doesn't meet up with a German Shepherd and it meets up more with a French Bulldog, you need to get a French Bulldog. Or if it doesn't match up with the dog at all, I'm gonna say, hey Pete, you might want to, consider something else. You ever thought about a cat or, a dog, some kind of animal that can
A
take
fish tank.
more, you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
a lot of different roads you could go. And I love cats, but dogs require a lot more work. And I think they're about on par with horses. They're just not as big. And I think a lot of people realize the work involved with horses because they're such a big animal. But dogs are predators. And I tell people this, I'm scared of dogs because I've seen what dogs can do to people. Dogs kill people every year. So they're not like tamed animals. They're wild. We tame them by training. So
Right. And that training is what allows them to actually feel comfortable in the environment that they're in.
correct. Yep.
Right. So would you say that most untrained dogs experience way more anxiety and suffering than they would ever need to experience?
See it every day.
Yeah.
And then people are like, if I spend a little bit of time around a dog, they're like, Matt, it just seems like you're a dog whisperer. No, it's not a magic pill. The dog, I don't put any pressure on the dog. The dog realizes, like, I'm fun, I'm happy, like, we're going to have fun. The relationship is there. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors with dogs. So it's you get the snapshot of the person walking the dog at the park, but that's just a snapshot of the day. You don't see the I guess the disobedience or the anxiety or the characteristics of maybe what that dog is actually experiencing in the house.
Exactly. Yep. It's just a snapshot. It's like social media where people only post the happy, right? You don't see the whole story.
Yeah. Yeah, just the segment. Yeah. That's interesting. And then what about like men and women with dogs? So
Mhm.
like, are there certain breeds of dogs that are great for women versus men, or do you think it's neutral across the board?
Neutral. In fact, uh, the lady just won the world championship in IGP, a world level best trainers in the world. A female one for the German Shepherd. It
Really?
happens multiple. I think women are better with dogs and better trainers if they can learn to get over some of the stuff we've talked about before with the, putting too many human emotions on the dog. Because women are very nurturing. They bring a lot to the table, but now certain women and I think it depends on it and guys and I mean everything, right? It just depends on the right fit of dog for the person. And that's why people should see a trainer before they ever buy a dog. See a professional. I offer that service and I need to do better about marketing, I think, but a lot of people were instant gratification. So we decide we want to get a dog. We look up real quick. Oh, honey, here's Siberian Huskies. Well, Siberian Huskies probably not going to be the right fit of dog for you. On top of that, any good breeder of a Siberian Husky isn't posting on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace.
Right.
And so, and then they're definitely not doing any temperament testing to see if that dog is going to match the personality of the people. So if you contact a professional, then I could steer you in the right way of matching the same like we said before. You call me and you're looking for a dog, right?
Yeah, and you're saying that that's the responsibility of the trainer or the breeder to make sure that the person that's seeking them for counsel or wanting to purchase a dog, like that they're making sure that the animal is going into a place where they have a chance to thrive.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Like I
Yeah.
don't want my dog going somewhere where it can't thrive. If I had a kid, I'm not sending my kid to some school where he's not going to get educated. So,
It's the same thing.
same thing.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Then this is what triggered sort of my interest because I'd never looked at it at the depth obviously that you have. So it sort of sparked a curiosity and got me really interested in working with dogs and like and it's amazing what happens because they're so malleable. Like they're and most of them are super smart and so they pick up on energies and they pick up on tone of voice and all sorts of like they really it's fascinating to watch. Like
They're survivalists, man. They're
yeah,
doing what it takes to survive. Like, if that dictates them acting a certain way when you raise you know what I mean? Like, it's just purely survival. That's the
yeah.
beginning of it.
Is there like certain fundamentals that a dog has to have before it's in a house, like before it's in a house or being homed?
Uh, I don't think so. It really just depends on what the person wants from the dog.
Okay.
So I always ask people, I'm like, what is your goal with the dog? So tell me what you want to accomplish. Well, I just want to be able to walk the dog on the leash, not have the dog jump up when people come over, whatever it is, right? Whatever fits your lifestyle. Not have the dog come in the kitchen. If I drop something on the floor, he leaves it so he doesn't eat something he doesn't need to. Like whatever you need the dog to be in your lifestyle. But that's part of the coaching that I'm going to do with the individual. Is the point is I'm teaching you to be the trainer. You
Right.
again, it goes back to you knowing what to do. You have to become a trainer because yeah, you can call me at any time, but I might not be available right when you needed me. You know what I mean? But if you know how to tackle those things, and I always tell my clients, I'm a resource for life. But nobody ever takes me up on that really.
Really.
Like one person, maybe two.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and it's
Call me, Pete. I'll answer the phone anytime. At this point, you probably know a little bit about that. So it's like,
yeah.
I will help you.
Yeah, and that's that speaks a lot to where our society's gone. And then with all of the social media and all of these, I guess I like to look at them as celebrity dog trainers.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, they're, I mean, when I got into some of the training stuff, I mean, you could just search and there's hundreds of them. And every single one of them is, I mean, even more so than golf. I mean, there's almost more dog trainers than there are, YouTube golfers.
Yeah.
So you can type a question in, and like, oh, why is my dog doing this? Or right, and then be directed to some band-aid, but it's never going to actually stick.
Not gonna get to the root cause, bro. Yep. The band-aids, and that's what people do. It's like a band-aid thing. Like, oh, my dog's, well, let me help you with that. And I try to show people it's the foundation. You can't build anything without a solid foundation. So if the dog doesn't know how to learn and have a relationship with you, the rest of what you're doing is shit. It's gonna
Right.
crumble. It's gonna show itself. You're like, oh, that just came out of nowhere. For instance, the dogs not too long ago that attacked the kids and the wife and everything, the pit bulls. That just came out of nowhere. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
No, it didn't.
And those types of behaviors happen because of a lack of a foundation.
Correct.
So they're not disciplined at the simple levels, like being able to take a command.
Well, there's no relationship. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
relationship.
So it's even more than that. It's actually, there's no connection.
There's no connection to that dog. Why would a dog attack me that had a relationship with me?
Right. Right. Yeah, they wouldn't.
Dog saw them as a threat, not
Yeah.
as a partner.
Right. And that was already hardwired in there.
That was going that whatever they did with the dog. If I could have been a fly on the wall to see behind the closed doors, I could tell you exactly what caused it.
Wow.
Multitude of things.
Yeah. That's wild, man. Like, and it really goes back to the power of the dog. I mean, it's, we can walk outside and it's drizzling and fly a few thousand miles and the same water has just decimated an entire city. It's just water.
Just water.
But yeah, and every dog has that in them.
Yeah, they have that capability, and especially when you start talking about, these larger, more powerful breeds that I think most people that are going to own dogs shouldn't own.
Right. Yeah, because they're at a multiplier of what is in a smaller dog.
Yeah, it's closer to what they are. It's closer to what they came from.
Yeah.
Look at a 98-pound German Shepherd, dude.
Yeah.
Hustle with that dog.
Yeah, and that's why they use them for the purpose that they use them.
That's what they're bred for.
Yeah.
They invented the breed. They were herders, German Shepherd, Herd, right? So they were meant to herd sheep in a live fence all day. So when the sheep crossed over where it wasn't supposed to be, the dog would run down, nip them, and move them back. But the breeder, the originator of the breed, Captain Max, quickly realized that the dog had way, way more potential than just a herder. And so quickly into military work and, police work. But it was really World War I to where the dogs became super, super popular.
Right, and they had done that through the passing down of genetics. So it was it all goes back to it.
Sport that we compete in, IGP, used to be called Schützen. So that was a breed test. A lot of people that compete in the sport don't even realize that it's a breed test. It's not some just dog sport. Like obedience, tracking, and protection work. If the dog couldn't pass those at the highest level, it shouldn't be bred. That was the standard set by him to continue to make sure that the German Shepherds stay pure. As a working dog, not a show dog, a working dog.
Right. And then, I mean, I noticed the difference just from doing some research about the difference between how even a working line dog looks versus that of a show line dog. I mean,
Yep.
it's like the same type of dog, but their physical body is totally different.
Totally different. And the reason why that is, get on my podium, that shouldn't be. There shouldn't be two separate. It should be one. It's a German Shepherd. There shouldn't be a show line. There shouldn't be a working line. But people get it in their heads that they want to go a certain direction. And so they start breeding for looks as opposed to some of those show line dogs can't even do bite work, dude. They can't hurt. They
Yeah.
can't do anything. And then on the opposite side, though, some of the working dogs are ugly as sin. And like they're not bred to what they should be bred to do the job that they need to be. Sometimes they're too tall. They don't have enough angulation. It should be one. It should be a German Shepherd dog, and the breed standard is a standard for a reason. We should be breeding to that standard that Captain Max set, or whichever breed of dog that you want to go.
Right.
Whoever that had a standard, and the standard was set for a certain look, and the look was to be able to. It was for the dog to work. That's why it looks a certain way. That's why it has so much angulation or not. It's to work.
Yeah, the functionality of it, right?
Functionality, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, the functionality of the dog.
Yeah. It's like why do all the Formula One cars look the same?
Because that's the way fucking aerodynamics work. When you're going 200 plus miles an hour, that's the way it better look, you know?
Right. Yeah. What do you think about the best breeds of dogs or the best type of dog for a new dog owner? Like if there's somebody curious about getting a dog, does it really just come down to their own personal lifestyle and personality?
Yeah. Personal lifestyle, that they have kids, what they're doing, like how much they're traveling, because boarding dogs is very expensive. Like there's a lot. If somebody hired me to help them with that, I put a lot of time into it. I pride myself on making sure I find the right fit for them. So
yeah, because I could imagine that the rehousing isn't a fun process for the dog.
no, nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go through that, and nobody should have to go through that if it was done the right way. It's not fair to the owners. It's not fair to the dog.
Yeah.
It's not fair to anybody that's involved. So,
and then also ending up at a pound or being left or.
Come on. Yeah, that strikes a different chord in me. I just don't understand that.
Yeah. And but you talked about it a little bit earlier about the fact that even those types of facilities are around.
They shouldn't even exist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
If we were doing right by the dog, those places wouldn't exist.
Right.
And then some of the rescues that are, that's a whole different conversation, but they're just adding fuel to the fire sometimes. So.
Is there a point where a dog, is there a point where a dog gets to where they've crossed a point of no return in terms of, say they've been not neglected, but they've never been properly trained and they've had, they weren't able to integrate or fit into the lifestyle of the owner? Like, is there a point where that dog would never be able to be trained effectively to?
I think you would have to manage it. I think there's instances, I've seen it personally, where, with the right person, but the problem is people aren't educated with dogs to do it. So to be more fair to the dog, sometimes it'd be better to just put the dog down. That would be more fair to the dog. So,
right. Because the dog would be suffering.
Yeah, it's been suffering for however long, it's happened. Right. So, yeah, a dog can always be trained, but it just goes back to, again, handling the dog. I mean, I've taken dogs before where people, bite history, it laced up 2 or 3 people, and the dog was fine with me, but I might not be able to trust the next person with the dog that didn't have the knowledge that I have.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I read somewhere, I'm curious about your thoughts on this, about like if you have a high powered dog, say a purebred German Shepherd, just for an example, there really shouldn't be anybody else touching that dog except for its owner.
yeah, well, it just depends. Again, it depends on what you want. So
Okay.
if you want it as a pet dog, then that's fine. Like, you just need to know how to do the training around that, right? And
Right.
that down to the temperament of the German Shepherd. So if you knew that's what you wanted, first of all, if that's what you wanted from a German Shepherd, you got the wrong breed.
Okay, that's what I was kind of thinking like getting to.
But there are, instances at any time, like the Giyu, my dog that I got for sport that I rehomed. He's more of like a pet type dog. You know, he can be pet, and people come around him, and you know, he's totally fine. But as a whole, I would say if that's what you're looking for, I'm gonna push you toward a golden retriever or a lab.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah, that makes
shepherds are be aloof, suspicious, right?
yeah.
They're herders, and sometimes they're quick to solve problems with their teeth. So versus a dog, they were made to bite. Versus a dog like a golden retriever, who's a soft mouth dog, or like your bird dogs that you grew up with, they're meant to gently hold and bring back. So 2 totally different breeds.
Right. And so that's where it goes back to the original, like, what is the purpose?
What do you want the dog for?
Right.
And you need to know that before you ever buy a dog.
Right. Right. Yeah, so it's like if I want a dog to just sort of cruise with me on the sofa watching a football game, and I don't really have time during the day to, say I'm at the office all day or I travel or whatever, like there's going to be a certain type of dog that's going to fit that type of lifestyle.
Yeah, like a Havanese
Right.
or a pug, or I mean, they can go on and on. There's
Right.
dogs that were bred for companionship, like a Havanese was specifically bred to be a companion, Havana, Cuba, right? So that's why it's called a Havanese. Like, they would go off to war, the guys, and the girls, the ladies back home wanted a companion. So those dogs were bred for that.
So that's like an ideal house dog.
Yeah, ideal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all stuff I never really thought of. I mean, and the thing that interested me the most was just the intersection and the relationship that's created between the human, between the owner and the dog, and how that like shows itself. It's so it seems to be really reflective, like it's almost a mirror.
It is.
It's a mirror situation.
That's why people get upset sometimes whenever you're being told what your dog should be doing, right? And I think people get defensive. And that's where the humbling comes in. I've been there. I've had to be humble. I have to be humble. I mean, I have people that help me with dog training that I think are way better trainers than me, that I
Yeah.
watch, I admire and I look up to. And the same way, if I have an opportunity to be around them, they're going to coach me. And it's up to me to be like, okay, even though I got a lot of experience in dog training, I didn't see it like that. So I need to step back, take a look, try again.
Right. Yeah, like, oh, I wasn't aware of that.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not to get defensive. You just weren't aware of what was happening. That's it.
Right. And do you think that because of that, I guess, mirror that's reflected back on me as the owner, that's where we have a lot of these different modalities where people are starting to move more toward what's more comfortable for them rather than the dog?
100%. Yep.
So what's the positive reinforcement?
Yeah, that's it. Like no negative. They do that exactly. You're hitting the nail on the head, right? So it doesn't make them feel bad because they don't want the animal to suffer. And well, have you ever seen a dog run into the the counter, like the edge of the counter? Like Rowan, my dog, one day just like turned the corner super hard, just like smashed his head. I mean, it echoed through the house. He didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
These wild animals.
Yeah, he was back up and moving.
He didn't like nothing happened. Like in my face, I'm like, if I would have hit my head like that on the corner that hard, the echo through my house,
We're going to the hospital.
yeah, I'm like, oh, you know, the dog didn't miss a beat.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So where do you think it goes from here as far as like your personal journey with training, and what are some of your your own individual ideas and visions towards like the next 4 or 5 years?
I'm hoping to get more. I'm really glad that you asked me to do this podcast. I've been asked by a couple of people now to put myself out there more, which that's if you know me and you'll
Yeah.
get like that's not who I am. And so um and there's some good people doing that in the dog training world already, but the problem is there's not enough of us, like true dog people doing that. There's a lot of bullshit, right? So I really want to try to put myself out there a little bit more and just like, with the spot and everything that we got going on and just really trying to educate people. Um, that's really all we can do is try to educate people, and try and pass on the knowledge that I have
Yeah.
to other people.
Yeah, and that seems to be your passion. Like you really are passionate about giving people the right information so that they can have a successful relationship with their dog.
Yeah, that's it. That's the beginning and end of it because everybody wants that and everybody deserves that. And the problem is that there's just so much miscommunication here that it just you can get on the internet and find 10 or 20 different pretty easy, different methodologies and people saying things like not quite how it is. But
Yeah. Yeah, and like one of my I can really relate because I've always sort of felt as I felt real comfortable in the shadows. So like I never needed to be the center of attention for
right.
anything. And uh I was listening to a Jordan Peterson podcast a few weeks ago, and something changed when he said this for me, but he said so, and I think I'm paraphrasing, but he said, if you have something to say, you need to say it. And I realized, and I asked myself the question, I said, well, do you have something to say? And I said, well, yeah, I've always had something to say. Like
I got a lot.
yeah, I've always had the thoughts or the ideas to say it, but had never taken that next step to actually putting it out there and saying it, so I can really relate because I'm on that journey myself, like getting out there. And my thing is golf instruction, because like I know we share a lot of common ideas about golf instruction and the game of golf and dog training. It's like almost the same, really. And I go on and listen to what people are being told to do, or and a lot of these guys are well-known instructors or have large followings, and it's not even that I disagree with it. I disagree with the timing of it. So it's like trying to get somebody to shallow the club, or to create some flexion in their left wrist or whatever it is. And I'm looking at it going, the dude doesn't even stand to the golf ball right. Like,
Not there.
he doesn't even stand to the ball properly. So like at the end of the day, the thing is on the ground, and if he's not standing it correctly, then the move that he's trying to make is going to be completely inefficient for what he's trying to do. And this has been going on for me for years, man. Like just day after day, just like hearing things and seeing things. And I'm just going, man, I think you're missing it there. Like you're not missing the information. You're just missing the time of when it's like you're missing what it's stacked on, right?
Yep. The pieces, right?
Yeah.
That's like whenever we worked together is the same way. Like nobody had ever explained to me how to even hold the golf club.
Right.
How to stand. I was
Yeah.
like, holding it wrong the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's big. And that's really where I think that's the center line. I think that's the middle of the road. And I think the middle of the road is what's missing.
Yep.
Really. I think there's a lot of people talking about branches, but nobody's talking about the trunk.
Foundation, bro. It's the same thing. The dog, because like the dog training the same way, you'll hear a lot of good pieces online. But it goes back, like those pieces aren't going to help you at all if your foundation, like if you don't have a relationship with your dog and the dog doesn't know how to learn, then all that other shit just goes out the window. And the same thing with the golf. It's like, yeah, trying to get me to do this and that, but if I don't know exactly what you said, if I don't know how to stand and hold a golf club and get my weight appropriately, then I'm not going to be able to hit it. Not
Right.
with consistency.
Right. And so what would you say, just in closing, like foundationally, somebody doesn't have a dog, they're interested in adding a dog to their life. What would the steps be for that person to go through for themselves so that it can be a fruitful and healthy relationship?
Yep. Reach out to somebody who's knowledgeable. So if anybody wanted to reach out to me, I would willingly take the call. We would meet in person and I would start the education process there. The same way that we're talking right now, I would let them know all of this information to see if they even want a dog at that point. Then if they do want a dog, then we need to talk about X, Y, and Z about finding the dog that's going to fit their family or their situation the best. And then we got to talk to breeders, and I'm going to go to breeders once we decide on a breed. And we're going to find an ethical breeder, and it's not going to happen overnight. It might take a year for this person to get the dog that they need. So,
right. And then that would be the step of actually those would be the steps to inviting the dog to join their life. And then after that, you run into more steps.
Yeah, then it's more foundation, right? Foundation of training. Now that I've already educated you a little bit so you know what to expect. The breeder's doing their work because it's a well-bred dog, so the dog's already getting exposed to environmental stuff that's weird. The temperament's solid. It's already getting introduced to the crate. It's eating good food. It's already been to the vet and been rewarded for going to the vet, so that it associates it as being a positive thing. It's already been having its nails done from the breeder. And then we just take that foundation and we carry it home to your house and we just continue training.
Right. And that would be the ideal situation.
That's ideal.
That would be ideal. So if somebody goes to the pound or goes to a shelter and picks a rescue,
which I'm all for, by the way.
Right. I think it's great.
Again, consult me with that or somebody that knows so that when we go to the pound, we can take the dog because the dogs are going to act differently. There needs to be like a trial basis. We need to take it home. We need to see if it's going to fit the lifestyle.
Right.
And pounds will let you do that, and rescues, they understand. So
right. And those are things that I would assume most people don't do.
They don't. Nobody does that. Nobody.
Right. And that mitigates a lot of suffering, not only for the owner, but also the dog.
Yep. Most importantly, the dog, and then the humans. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm going to put your information in the description. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm assuming they can get in contact with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And then, yeah, thanks so much for doing this too. I know we got to keep working on your golf game as well. That's our next,
yeah.
That's our next thing. You know, You scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. They, golf is like life. That's why I like it so much. Dogs and golf are like life. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the dog part now too for me. But thanks, Matt, for coming on. Appreciate it, man.
cool. We'll talk soon.
See you, man.
See ya.